At 95, Clint Eastwood finally speaks about Rob Reiner's mistakes in raising his son. Clint Eastwood was born Clinton Eastwood Jr. on May 31, 1930, in San Francisco, California. His early life was shaped by the uncertainty of the Great Depression. His family moved frequently as his father searched for work, instilling in young Eastwood a sense of independence and resilience that would later define both his on-screen persona and his personal philosophy. He was a quiet, introspective child, more comfortable observing the world than speaking loudly within it, a trait that would later translate into the controlled intensity for which he became famous. Before Hollywood ever took notice, Eastwood lived an ordinary life filled with varied experiences. He worked as a lifeguard, paper carrier, and steel mill worker, and served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War era. These early years grounded him, giving him a practical outlook and strong work ethic that never left him, even after achieving fame. Unlike many stars who seemed shaped entirely by Hollywood, Eastwood always retained the perspective of someone who had lived outside it. Eastwood's acting career began modestly in the 1950s with small film roles, but his first major breakthrough came in television. In 1959, he was cast as Rowdy Yates in the Western series Rawhide. The show ran for 8 seasons and introduced Eastwood to millions of viewers, establishing him as a dependable leading man. Yet, rather than becoming confined by television success, Eastwood took a bold risk that would forever change his life. In the mid-1960s, he traveled to Europe to star in a series of low-budget westerns directed by Italian filmmaker Sergio Leone. Films such as A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly reinvented the western genre and introduced the world to Eastwood's iconic Man with No Name. With minimal dialogue, piercing eyes, and a cool, restrained presence, Eastwood created a new kind of cinematic hero. One who spoke less but conveyed immense moral weight. These films made him an international star and permanently altered the language of action cinema. Returning to Hollywood, Eastwood continued redefining himself in the 1970s. His portrayal of Inspector Harry Callahan in Dirty Harry became one of the most recognizable characters in film history. While controversial, the role captured the cultural tensions of the era and cemented Eastwood as a symbol of uncompromising justice and individual resolve. Yet even as audiences embraced his tough guy image, Eastwood was already planning his next evolution. Determined to control his own creative destiny, Eastwood founded Malpaso Productions, a company that allowed him unprecedented independence. As a director, he demonstrated remarkable efficiency, humility, and respect for his collaborators. He became known for shooting quickly, avoiding excessive takes, and trusting actors to deliver honest performances. This approach fostered authenticity and earned him deep loyalty from those who worked with him. As a filmmaker, Eastwood's work grew increasingly introspective. Films such as Unforgiven deconstructed the very myths he once embodied, offering a somber meditation on violence, regret, and aging. The film won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director, confirming Eastwood's place among cinema's greatest artists. Later works like $1 Million Baby, Gran Torino Mystic River, and Letters from Iwo Jima further showcased his moral depth, emotional restraint, and willingness to confront difficult truths about humanity. Remarkably, Eastwood's creativity did not diminish with age. It deepened. While many artists retreat from the spotlight, Eastwood continued directing and acting into his 80s and 90s, bringing wisdom, compassion, and reflection to stories about legacy, forgiveness, and the passage of time. His later films resonate not as attempts to cling to relevance, but as thoughtful contributions from a man who has lived fully and observed carefully. Beyond film, Eastwood is also an accomplished musician, particularly as a jazz pianist and composer. Music has always played a quiet but important role in his life and films, often underscoring emotional moments with subtle elegance rather than overt drama. This sensitivity further reflects the artist behind the public image, measured, reflective, and deeply human. Clint Eastwood's personal life, particularly his marriages and family relationships, has often drawn as much public fascination as his legendary career in film. While Eastwood has always projected a reserved, stoic public image, much like the characters he portrayed on screen, His private life reveals a complex story marked by long-term commitments, evolving relationships, and a deeply rooted sense of responsibility toward his children. On December 19, 1953, Clint Eastwood married Maggie Johnson, a union that would become one of the longest and most significant relationships of his life. At the time, Eastwood was still a struggling actor, far from the iconic figure he would later become. Maggie Johnson, who came from a more stable and conventional background, married Eastwood before fame transformed his life and career. Their marriage spanned more than 3 decades, enduring the dramatic changes that came with Eastwood's rise from obscurity to international stardom. As his career took off in the late 1950s and 1960s, first through television's Rawhide and later through his groundbreaking Man with No Name films, Eastwood's demanding work schedule and growing celebrity placed increasing strain on their relationship. Despite these pressures, the marriage produced 2 children who would each go on to carve their own paths. Their son, Kyle Eastwood, born in 1968, developed a strong interest in music and ultimately became a respected jazz bassist and composer, occasionally contributing to film scores, including some associated with his father's projects. Their daughter, Allison Eastwood, born in 1972, pursued acting and filmmaking, later establishing herself as a director and environmental activist. While Clint Eastwood was not always present in a traditional sense due to his workload, he maintained relationships with his children and supported their ambitions, often encouraging independence and creative expression rather than pushing them into his shadow. The marriage to Maggie Johnson formally ended in separation in 1984, following years of personal challenges and prolonged periods of distance. Reports at the time indicated that Johnson received a substantial divorce settlement, estimated between $25 and $30 million, reflecting both the length of the marriage and Eastwood's considerable financial success by that point. Despite the divorce, their relationship did not dissolve into bitterness. Over the years, both have spoken respectfully of one another, suggesting that while the marriage ultimately could not survive the pressures of fame and differing lifestyles, it remained a meaningful chapter in both of their lives. More than a decade later, Eastwood entered another significant marriage when he wed Dina Ruiz on March 31, 1996. Ruiz, a television news anchor, was considerably younger than Eastwood, and their relationship attracted immediate media attention. Unlike his earlier marriage, this union took place when Eastwood was already an established icon, an Oscar-winning director and cultural institution. Dina Ruiz often accompanied him to public events and became a visible presence during this period of his life, occasionally participating in interviews and reality television that offered rare glimpses into Eastwood's private world. The couple welcomed a daughter, Morgan Eastwood, in 1996. Morgan grew up largely away from the Hollywood spotlight, but later explored acting and modeling, appearing in a few films and television projects. By many accounts, Eastwood was a devoted father to Morgan, particularly in his later years, often emphasizing the importance of family stability and presence as he aged. His relationship with Morgan reflected a softer, more openly paternal side of a man long associated with tough, emotionally restrained screen personas. However, this marriage also faced challenges. In August 2013, Dina Ruiz publicly revealed that she and Eastwood were living separately, signaling the breakdown of their relationship. The separation quickly became public, and the subsequent divorce in 2014 drew widespread media coverage. The split was reportedly contentious at times, involving disputes over finances and personal boundaries, and marked a rare moment when Eastwood's private life became the subject of intense public scrutiny. Nevertheless, the divorce concluded legally, allowing both parties to move forward independently. Beyond his 2 marriages, Clint Eastwood's broader family life is often described as complex and unconventional. He is widely believed to have fathered 8 children with 6 different women, a fact that has fueled speculation and curiosity for decades. Eastwood himself has generally avoided confirming exact numbers, maintaining a consistent reluctance to discuss intimate details of his personal life. This discretion appears intentional, reflecting his long-standing belief that his work should take precedence over tabloid narratives. Despite this silence, it is clear that Eastwood has maintained relationships with his children and, in many cases, supported them emotionally and professionally, even when those relationships were formed outside traditional family structures. At 95 years old, Clint Eastwood has reached a stage in life where reflection outweighs restraint. Having lived nearly a century, raised 8 children of his own, and worked with generations of filmmakers, Eastwood now speaks with the calm authority of experience rather than controversy. When asked recently about parenting in Hollywood and the differences between his own approach and that of some of his peers, Eastwood offered rare comments that many interpreted as a pointed reflection on Rob Reiner's parenting choices. Eastwood did not speak with bitterness or hostility. Instead, his words carried a measured, almost philosophical tone, shaped by decades of balancing fame, fatherhood, and personal accountability. "I've never believed that protecting a child from the world prepares them for it," Eastwood said. "Life isn't gentle, and pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone grow." Without naming specific incidents, Eastwood contrasted his own belief in independence with what he views as a more